let's just start with talking about, before March, y'all were running pretty strong for your first full year at the Anderson Institute of Technology. Oh, okay. Just kind of give me, how did the first year go? Did it go as well as expected? Was there anything y'all learned?
Well, the first year at AIT got off to a great start. I think not only did the students really engage their programs here, the faculty were excited, students as well. So we really had a great year. And I've talked with a lot of students even after the first semester, and they were excited about being here. So it met at least all of our expectations in terms of what we expected from the students, the programs, and in terms of how the faculty engaged students the first semester. And so in terms of the operation from the beginning to the end and student involvement and engagement was really an exciting time, and the excitement was really high here in the center.
About with the partners, the partnerships y'all had with all the businesses and stuff, how well did that go?
The partnership building has been unbelievable. I've worked with partners across the state for the last 20 years at state level and in other locations. The partnerships built here in Anderson County is by far the best and the most robust and the greatest response from partners. And so when you look at the Michelins and the Bosches and the First Qualities and the Arthrexes and the BMWs and the Electroluxes and all of those companies, they have stepped up and delivered, and not only in direct contributions to help programs, they've donated equipment, they've established apprenticeships, they've engaged students here in terms of their companies, brought people in to do interviews with students. So I'm really delighted about the partnerships we've got here in Anderson County.
Well, then March came and changed everything. How did your faculty and students respond to suddenly not being able to come back?
Well, I think the fact was I think we had some advantage in the fact that as a center, in the fact that Anderson 5 did have an e-learning program, and so there was at least a framework and structure that the superintendent had built with that program. So the transition, I think with our faculty, the majority of them are really good with technology, and so a lot of them are in business and interest, so they're used to adapting to the environment and changes that occurred. I think overall I was very pleased with how the transition took place, and in some cases the faculty have shared with me is that the students seem to make more progress in that environment than they did when they were in a class face-to-face instruction. So, and the reason I know that our students were able to continue to make progress is that on our state exams, students still have been able to successfully complete those. We did make one adjustment, that in those students that had to have a state exam or either certifications, we brought them back in small groups at a time, and they spent 2 or 3 days here with an instructor following all the guidelines and protocols of CDC, but we're able to get some additional training to prepare them for the exam. So we made the adjustment, and I would say on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the absolute best, I would say probably I would give it a 4 in terms of how students and faculty adjusted to it and the results we got.
Did y'all learn anything from that time that might be helpful going forward if we have another shutdown kind of period?
Yeah, and I think what we're going to do here is that early on, meaning within the first 7 or 8 days back on campus, we're going to have 1 day schedule where the faculty and students, although they'll be in class, we will have them in an e-learning environment. So the teacher will teach online, students will learn online, so that students can ask questions about things that they have questions about, so that engagement can be more robust if we end up having to go to a virtual experience again. So we're going to try to prepare faculty and students again to be more engaging, if you will, in that environment.
Were there any plans or goals for this year that you've had to adjust because of this?
Yeah, and I think, a couple of things that I think has been a challenge. One is that the model that I establish is that it's both engaging with students, engaging with parents, and engaging the community. And part of that is the engagement in the community is having visitors come, having parents in here, having businesses in here. And so that's how we thrive and grow, both in partnerships and in involvement with parents and students. And so when you look at that and the restrictions that come with the COVID, it ends up where we're now having to adjust to that, sizes of groups that come in, how that will be done. The other challenge is that we have students to visit from other schools and do tours. That's going to be different, and we're looking at right now how to do it virtually, how do we make it as real as possible, so that students still have an opportunity to be able to do that. So we're having to adjust on the fly on that. We had probably the first semester, we had probably 4,000 to 5,000 visitors through here. We anticipated having 10,000 a year from the community and from outside the community, and we were on that track to do that. So that's an adjustment we're having to make.
And I guess some of the hands-on programs are a challenge. I mean, there's certain things you can't really do e-learning and online.
Right, and we've done a great deal of planning, and there's no 100% fix on this, but we have a COVID plan right now, and in that plan, of course, from state level and guidance, the students will wear masks. We will looking at now the configuration of the classrooms to make sure where we can is to create the social distancing, and there's only probably three lab areas where we will have a bigger challenge. Most all the others, the labs are large enough to expand. What we're suggesting to faculty, and we'll prepare for them, is the halo mask along with face mask, that when they're in close proximity to the student, and what I call hands-on, face-to-face, close proximity of showing them the skill and having students practice that skill, is that protection is going to be increased. And we would anticipate most of our faculty probably having some kind of uniform. Certainly our health science folks, biomed, will be in scrubs and so forth, so that they can change daily. We're just trying to control so it doesn't get in a situation where we end up with a problem internally. We'll have coming into the building what we're going to do to change sort of the how kids enter the building. They will exit the bus at their program area. So if they're in health science or biomedical, then they will come in hall 100, and the buses then will go to different drop-off stations around the building to where they're dropped at the point of their program, and car riders and drivers will park in the area where their program is. So trying to cut down the amount of traffic moving up down the hallways. And we're going to try to make it, you can't have students, totally locked down. I mean, they have to have some kind of breathing room. So we're going to set up the Parliament, better known as a coffee bar area, with social distancing of desks. So we'll have the opportunity for students to engage to some extent social emotional growth, because that's very important right now. It's one thing to learn skills, but we forget that we've got 16, 15, 16, 17-year-olds here that need social emotional growth too.
How, you mentioned just a minute ago, how have you prepared the facility physically to deal with the challenges?
And that is a very robust and specific plan. We will certainly have the signage on the floors, students entering, hand sanitizers. We are debating now about checking temps of students coming in. We would like to be able at the door to be able to find out if a student does have a fever, so that for the benefit of the student, so that they get immediate health care. And the other one is that not get them in a classroom where possibly it could be COVID, may not be, but we want to make sure we give them the best care as possible. And then the internal part of the classroom, the sanitizing aspect of it, classrooms will be disinfected after the morning classes before the afternoon classes come in. And so all of those strategies and plans and the districts have been very good providing us support with resources and materials to get our facility ready. Those that enter the building from the outside, there'll be, as they come in the front area, there'll be a sanitizing station, there'll be a digital thermometer for them to check their fever, they will have to have a mask to come in.
How many students do you expect? Do you know yet?
We will have, right now, again, it's difficult to know with the virtual school how this is going to impact enrollment. Right now, we're expecting over 1,100 for the year, and so it depends, I think, a lot on the ability, because if they're in the virtual academy, then they'll have to provide their own transportation here. So hopefully that will not be a deterrent. We hope the students are able to find transportation to come here. However, I really think the students, they want to be here. I mean, I think ones that I've talked with are excited about the returning and completing their program. So we anticipate the majority of those students have signed up to show up.
And just as an overview, remind people of the programs y'all offer here for students.
Okay, we have 20 programs, and they range from everything from agriculture, vet science. We have programs in biomedical science and health science, and the health science students can actually get certified as a certified nursing assistant. We have engineering programs. We have mechatronics, which is in high demand of the businesses here in the area. We have welding. We have auto tech. High demand programs in the community. We also have digital visual art for those that have interest in sort of the computer field, visual computer field. And we have those that have interest in what they call the media technology as well, and computer science. So we've got a broad offering of courses that I think, one, meet the demands of the workforce needs in the community and the students' interest in terms of what their interests are.
And some of that is designed specifically for economic development in some of our industries here, right?
Right, yes. There was a needs analysis done by the county, workforce development groups, and in partnership with the school districts to determine what the needs were. And we went back recently and revisited that because that's probably a 3-year-old study. And there was a grant that came out from the state level in workforce development, and another needs analysis was done. And most of that is parallel in terms of interest. I think the center here, one, is that is a demand need. Being an educational facility, it is also designed for students that have interest in moving to 2-year and 4-year college into areas that they would move on into what I'd call the next level of engagement in the workforce. But we have set up advisory committees for all of the programs, and so we have experts from the field that advise faculty and administration. I've set up an overall advisory council. Unfortunately, COVID came along and has prevented us from meeting, but we do plan to try to get a scheduled meeting in the fall. Again, to get input from the leadership in the companies in the area. These are primarily CEOs or just under the CEOs of companies, heads of HR, that can say, this is what we're looking at 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road. These are the kinds of jobs that are going to be available, how they're going to expand. So we're looking both at the present and in the future.
And speaking of the future, eventually, if history holds, we'll have a vaccine or some way to deal with this COVID-19.
Yes.
Have you learned anything that will be helpful moving forward when there is no health crisis?
Hey, I think one of the things is being prepared. I mean, I think we were probably as prepared at the time as we could be, knowing the situations of dealing with things that are unusual, such as knowing that e-learning system was there. I think what it's opened our eyes to, there are programs out there, online, virtual programs, that we can make it a little more robust experience for students if in fact we move to that kind of situation again. I do think it'll be even a smoother transition. And I think the other thing is embrace the moment. I mean, I think if anything this has taught us, there are things in our lives that we cannot control. And from the weather to disease. And I think we sort of rock along in life and in the world, and as educators and as students, and we sort of take things that are really good for granted, and all of a sudden they're taken away from us. So I think brings a great appreciation for what we do, and I think students will gain a greater appreciation for school. I think they will embrace it more in a way in which they can see that this is meaningful to me in my life, and I missed it. And so I think we've learned from that, and I think students will grow from that.
And obviously everything can shift every day. How are y'all staying in touch with students and parents?
We're communicating primarily by social media and virtually. We'll be communicating beginning next week. A lot of this will be online. There'll be a letter that will go out from me to the parents, explaining to them what they can expect from us, and we'll keep them informed. Now, one of the things that we did during the e-learning period, we had a lot of Zoom sessions with faculty. We tried to do that also to have faculty do that with students, so that parents could get engaged and have communication. And we try to keep that line open with parents, because having been a parent and grandparent, I mean, I understand the importance of where they feel, their child is safe. And I always tell folks, I try to treat every student here, and I try to get faculty to understand that too, is that we have to view it as our own children and grandchildren. I mean, and I think we have that culture here, is that they're as important to us as our own children and grandchildren. The 3 districts have been tremendously supportive, districts 3, 4, and 5, I think. And we've tried to be engaging with them in their times that everybody has to be flexible and adjust. I do think that there was an advantage to move our start date back and move it into September, to give us more planning time, to make sure that we have all the T's crossed and I's dotted, to make sure that we have the safest place possible for students to come in and engage in learning. And 2 is to have the parents really to understand that this is a focal point of what we do, and that is going to be the student safety and faculty and staff safety as we begin the year. And we're excited about it. I think we're going to have a great year.